So today we'll be talking with a furry who went by the potential alias Peppermint Coyote, who talks about various furry scandals. This is the first of a 2-hour call. We're joined by farlado, Stepius, AZ the Elf, and BombasticBlake, as well as Solar Fenrir. Peppermint Coyote's call is easily the most disturbing call I've ever been in my entirety of Limbo, and I do thank the man for his insights, but I'd like to express his interests and preferences are very much his own. If you're eating, we'll be talking about zoo and furry, so bear in mind you have been warned. I'll be including timestamps much later on and a couple more notes in the description. I fortunately just got off of work. I'm very glad that Furlado did make this call, and as I promised, I would be able to publish this, or at least in part, as soon as possible, and I'm keeping my word. I'll see you all soon. Additionally, if you're looking for other new content, there is a video up on BitChute that I have in response to Andri apparent resurrection from the grave, and he's now supposedly allegedly cutting himself for all that's worth. I don't feel that video is exactly YouTube safe, so it's over there. That link will be at the top of the description.
So we're going to be recording, Grace, just to let you know. Are we recording it?
What are you recording about?
Smile, you're on candid camera.
We're interviewing a guy about how fucked up the furry fandom is.
Oh,
Jesus Christ. Can you all hear me?
Interview?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you, new guy.
Affirmative.
Okay. The Skype client I was using was a piece of shit.
Why did you come into the chat then announce that you were a zoo?
Why? Well, that's a good question. Of course,
why are you? And then why did we need to know that is my other question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched Jim's stream about the leaks at about 4 a.m. this morning.
Okay.
And I watched the video that you put out about Woof recently. Okay. So that shit angered me on an entirely new level. I would love to see every one of those motherfuckers that was in that chat get exactly what they deserve.
Sounds like we have a common interest.
Steph has explained he's all about petting dogs, but not much else.
No. Does he ever cover heavy petting now?
Steph, do you?
Hold on. What the hell is heavy petting? What is this?
I don't know.
Heavy petting is that. Heavy petting is the.
What is petting?
No.
I am not familiar.
Heavy petting.
I don't want to know about it.
Heavy petting is the classic Bible camp term for when you get a little too close to.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't care about this.
But we digress.
I appreciate y'all trying to protect my
50
innocence.
in like 20 seconds. What the hell is happening?
Okay.
That's my innocence, Grace. Jesus Christ.
No, your innocence is overrated, and it shall be mine by the end of all of this.
No means no, sir.
Remember, 50 no's and a yes is a yes.
Oh no!
Wait a second.
Technically, two negatives.
This
make
math
a
doesn't
positive,
add up.
So.
Okay, so as far as to why I am one, that's really hard to explain.
That's fascinating. So let's get back to what you know.
Okay. So
no. Let the man talk. I want to have a little bit of background about him before we really get into the meat and potatoes. He really needs to establish who he is, so we can we need to get the ethos really established here.
Okay, so I'm open to any and all questions, as long as they obviously don't reveal anything too personal. I'm sure you can understand why.
Of course.
So let's start with.
Are you a dragon?
No, I am not.
Do you self-identify as a dragon?
I self-identify as a toaster. Thank you very much.
Any further questions that are entirely off topic will lead to mutes. So
I've been in here all of a minute, and this is turning into a shit show. I love it.
Are you a dragon?
Let's carry on. So you were going to talk about why you are a zoo. So let's get back into that.
We got something to work with here. How many of you know the difference between zoophilia and bestiality?
Zoophilia is mostly the emotional connection with animals in it, while bestiality is just a straight-up sexual act. Usually they're considered one and the same because zoophilia is kind of like any other philia, is centered around the sexual attraction, with romance being an ancillary element of it, i.e. why pedophilia is the sexual attraction towards children as sort of a more romantic thing than just straight up child rape.
Sure. Okay. So you do have at least a basic understanding. Okay.
Did you just get offended by being compared to a pedophile?
No, I did not, because they're two entirely different things altogether. So no, I did not. I did not. And would not.
Obviously.
A child and a dog are two different things. They're generally things that society looks frowningly upon if you put your dick in them.
Yeah,
sure.
Of course. I think the thing that we need to realize is, like, I wasn't comparing them to pedophiles per se, as much I was just using it as a basis for how the word is used.
Point. You're the one who wanted to push the
Okay,
sexuality.
wait, are you romantically attracted to animals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have like relationships with animals?
Some do. I'm one of them that does. Others do not. Now, that's where the community kind of diverges a little bit, because there are plenty of people that call themselves zoos or who will hang around zoo chats and various other things, but they're literally just interested in putting their dick in something.
Okay.
So it's
but you're
so let
romantically
me
attracted to an animal,
Let's-
and an animal cannot really consent to being romantically attracted to you. Is that correct, or am I getting this wrong?
Before we
Okay.
get into that, can we just kind of clarify here? So it's kind of like, I feel like people use zoophilia as sort of a sexual orientation type label, where some people want to be romantically involved, some people just want to fuck. It's just like homosexuality in a sense, if you think about it in that way.
You are right.
Yeah, I wanted to get that clarification
Did you have
before
something
we.
there to add? I would love to hear it right now.
No, that comment just sounds so fucking stupid.
Thank you. Please go
I
on.
don't think zoophilia and homosexuality are the same thing.
Well, they aren't necessarily the same thing. I'm talking about things within them, like the nature of them. Some people have romantic inclination, some people do not. It's just that zoophilia happens to be towards animals, where, you know, homosexual. It's more about the nature than the object.
Sure, there's correlations. Yeah.
But again, before we get completely sidetracked, what you said you had information about the furry fandom. You sounded like you had things to say about, what was it, Zysis or some shit?
Okay, so first of all, I've been in the fandom a long fucking time, and I have also been a zoo for a long fucking time.
Okay, that's enough.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you have anything major necessarily to add
I'll
to
take
that?
the gossip while he's here. I mean, you know.
So the big thing with the furry fandom is I can tell you firsthand that even clear back to the early and mid 2000s, that shit was as you see it today. The thing is that a lot of furs and a lot of zoo furs and a lot of pedo furs and a lot of the sort of underground cultures within the fandom were kept very tightly under wraps. As the fandom started to move towards more of a leftist vibe and started, you know, trying to push for more in the way of acceptance and seeking social tolerance, and, you know, it's okay to fuck in hotel rooms at furry conventions and all of this kind of shit, that's when it really started to surface. This all kind of started to come up about 3 or 4 years ago.
That sounds about right
So when you said the left did this, so like Bill Maher walked up to you and said, "It's okay to love your dog." I'm just fucking.
No.
So let me hang on. Let me get my point here. So basically, hang on a second.
Okay.
Hang on a second, please. Let me get my question out.
All right.
So basically, what we'll say, instead of leftish, we'll say that they started to lean more towards, you know, acceptance and tolerance. Is it that they began to accept?
No, friend. That don't you lump that in with brony, sir? How dare you? No.
Hey, okay. Anyway, there is so much.
No.
Please, for the love of God, I do not want to have to use a fucking microscope to dissect and then rebuild together my statements. I would like for no interjections.
I think you might have
Kinda
to.
do. Don't you fucking dare.
Carrying on.
I keep trying to get you to get to the juicy gossip, but you keep going, by the way, I bang animals or some shit like that.
So-
I'm like, I don't want to know about that.
Okay,
Oh,
anyway,
God.
let me get this
Okay, go.
let me get this fucking question out. So
I
essentially,
think you should have to PayPal the room $1 every time you bring up your zoophilia fetish. Please stop.
I'm dead
Oh,
broke.
God.
So anyway, so as the fandom started to shift towards this idea of accepting everyone, was it that they started to accept like the zoo and pedo furs, or is it that they came
Did you say
to
the
us
steps
asking for
started to
acceptance?
accept it? You never
Wait.
I thought he heard that. I thought I
Believe
heard
he
that.
said when the
Like,
fans
I don't want
started
my, I don't want my
accept
dog
it.
to get fucked.
Okay, so
Nobody
basically.
wants their dog to get fucked too.
Oh my god. Anyway, take number fucking 3. So as the fandom started to shift towards this idea of acceptance, was it that the zoo and pedo furs started to approach the general public and were like, you know, the furry fandom's accepting, can you accept us? Or was it that the fandom started to accept them tacitly?
The fandom never really had to accept them. They were always there. They were always there, and a lot of the times in the sort of inner circles of the fandom, especially in close groups and everything, they were always there and always very open about it.
It's safe to say that individuals who became central and were, you know, pedophiles, they were talking about this with other individuals who were within, like, their higher echelons of the furry fandom's hierarchy.
I would be, yeah, I'd be willing to give you that.
Do you have any solid meat and potatoes to go with the pudding?
So that one's
I
a
don't
bit
want
difficult.
pudding from this guy.
Huh?
I don't want pudding from this guy. I don't want to know his definition of pudding.
Shut the fuck up, man.
Oh my god. Yeah, okay, you know, when you've seen as much shit on the internet as I have, unfortunately, I didn't have the Kiwi Farms level of archiving everything.
Okay.
Okay. So typical furry storage methods are in use here.
Yeah, it's, you know, a lot of it's fuzzy by memory. You know, there may have been some shit that happened behind a hotel room. I'm not going to say. No.
But yeah. It always happens behind hotel rooms. Sometimes it happens in the parking lot. It just doesn't fucking matter.
Were you on first name basis with anybody that, you know,
anyone big?
Famous or infamous or big works. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. No, not really.
Nobody.
Not really. I've seen Foxler in passing in a few places, but I've never really spoken to him.
We already have his full name anyway.
Most of my connections to the fandom have been sort of from the lower ranks, but the thing is, it's amazing how things filter down. So, you know, what goes on tends to, even if you're not watching a lot of the big wigs, it still makes it to some of the more, like the old text mucks and stuff is where I used to hang out a lot. So things still tend to make it there, and those places were actually where you would find the juicy bits, like people offering, you know, if you paid them, say, $100, that they would let you come and fuck their dog, or, you know.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So,
How many times did you lose $100?
So,
none.
Okay. I was about to say, oh Jesus,
None.
I was
No.
mean. Don't answer that.
No.
So essentially what you're telling me is stuff that we kind of already knew. This is a lot of general. Do you have anything really concrete, per se? Like, not about the general practices at conventions, but things that you can say and verify did happen.
If you had general conventions themselves, like specific areas, because I remember during one of Jim's streams where they were talking with some guy from Kiwi Farms, they mentioned a con, but not which con.
Yeah, just tell us, like, the convention, the who, the when, the where, the why. If you can give us
I'll take the
that,
convention, or dates, something.
if you can give us that much, I am more than satisfied.
Okay, so does anyone here remember Rocky Mountain Fur Con, RMFC?
RMFC. What year?
The last year that they ran, I can't exactly remember when that was. I think it was like
2016.
2016, yeah, okay. So, what do you guys know about the reason that con was canceled?
Canceled on April 10th, 2017 after threats of violence from, they had to
so they'll
pay security guards.
They basically used Foxler's group as a scapegoat for that. Well, the reason the con was really canceled was because I think one or more of the con chairs was a registered convicted sex offender that still had charges pending on him.
See, I've seen posts from Fox where it suggests he's down to be that scapegoat, and that's very interesting, and I do love that narrative, but you got anything to... Other than what you're telling me is an amazingly cool story, that's all we got, is it's amazingly cool and it's gossip.
Like, I mean, my stuff, like, I know...
Gossip, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, my issue is that, you know, everything that I get basically from the horse's mouth. I talk to people pretty much everywhere, and so it's like, I know
Right.
it because I was told it by this guy, and you just have to believe that I've had that conversation. But here we don't even have the names.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't have a list of names of the con chairs. It was actually kind of third party through me as well. So
Well, is it possible to find out who was on that con
So
staff?
can we go a little upstream then? Maybe if you have people who have information, discuss with them about getting their own statements.
Farlado, you're in touch with some people in the furry fandom. Can you look into who was at that convention?
Ooh, that'll be...
I know that'll take some time, but you might have to come back to this recording. By the way, we're recording. We'll have to come back to this recording.
Yeah.
That's a lead. That's certainly something worth looking into. I hope you're not playing your Doom game right now and fucking up the audio.
Nah, man, I am taking notes this time. Like last time, I entirely forgot like at least 5 or 6 times that I was recording. But this time I am so focused. It's like I'm taking notes in a class.
I was like, oh, between you and this new guy, we might find out all kinds of things. So far, I'm just mostly horrified. But go ahead.
So far, I'm just mostly horrified. I like it. Okay, so that was probably one of the bigger pieces that I knew about RMFC. Like I said, I didn't really archive names or anything. I believe at one point in time, I don't know if it's still active or not, but I believe that Foxler even used to have an account on the Beast Forum.
He
if I'm not
did.
mistaken.
We already know about that. Star Fox, Ace Fox.
Oh, that was the same. That was him?
Yup.
Okay, that explains a lot.
Believe it or not, it's not impossible. I haven't ruled it out that I've been able to get in touch with Foxler. Kinda, sorta, maybe?
So, yeah, there's some stuff about Foxler as Star Fox Ace Fox. So, with that name in mind, do you have anything else for us?
That name, I've seen, I think they may have been deleted, but I've seen a few threads where him and some of the others were basically making propositions in the Colorado area to meet up and share their animals, as it were. Again, I don't have details because my activities in BF were a long time ago, and I got out of there while the getting was fucking good. I didn't stay once I started seeing some of the shit, not only from the furry fandom, but from a lot of the other members that they were partaking in that just wasn't...
Shit, I should have gone incognito to do this, but I'm gonna... Star Fox Ace Fox. Total cumulative posts joined in 3rd of July 07, so he was 20 at the time.
Okay.
So let's put it to you this way, Peppermint Coyote. We've gotten everything that we need from you, I think. Yes, unless we're forgetting anything.
He was gonna bring up, I think, Xysis for a bit.
Oh yeah, did you have anything on Kero?
Okay, so I do have a few people who are absolute assholes that I think could deserve to be divulged a little bit. That maybe you guys knew about some of them, maybe you didn't.
Possibly.
I know, obviously, you guys aren't into this, but in a lot of the zoo communities, there's at least one giant problem person that we pretty much all agree really needs to fucking go. Have you heard of someone named Aluzgi by chance?
Can you spell that?
Aluzky.
You mean Elazar? Is that the snake guy?
No. This
Aluzgi
is somebody
is someone
different.
else.
He's originally from Costa Rica. His name is Alex Salazar.
Hang on, let me get that name down. And it's spelled Salezar, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Aluzgi had a YouTube channel that had a lot of videos discussing the more internal debates about zoophilia and all the stuff that I'm not going to go into. Aluzgi, I've seen screenshots, and I think they might still be archived on the net somewhere. He might even have a Kiwi thread on him. But Aluzgi basically has reported, by his own words, to basically having sex with hundreds of animals, and he would volunteer to dog sit for people and have sex with their pets while they weren't around as well.
Jesus Christ.
But
yeah.
I'm a bit confused though. You said the zoo part of the community is upset. Is there like a animal cap like Muslims have with, wives in your zoo community?
Well, I don't think you can really, just by means of concept, you can't really kind of compare the two there. But
no, I know I was being appeased, but I just want to, my point that I'm confused about, you said, well, he really has to go. He slept with hundreds of them. And I'm like, is there a prudent, frugal, accepted, conservative number of animals? Is that why he's, why is he taboo in the community?
So,
I'm going to regret asking.
It's Mainly because there's been some reports that he has injured other people's animals and that he basically is going behind the owner's back and doing things without their permission. A lot of us that are, I guess you could say ethical, or as ethical as you would be willing to call
relatively ethical, the people who know to ask permission before fucking the dog,
Well, and that's the next thing. That's a debate for an entire another topic. There's a lot of psychology involved about the whole premise of animal fucking, but I'm not going to go there for now. But the thing is this guy would do everything from picking up strays to, again, going behind people's back. Apparently, Alex even is a vet tech, the last I checked. So
I have a thing about that. He is still alive, active on 8chan.
Yeah, he is active there. He's made a lot of videos on the storefront sites to Beast Forum. See, Beast Forum itself is basically a service. They basically tried to cater to zoophiles and furries, but basically they're nothing but a porn swap shop.
Yeah, I knew that.
They have 3 front sites. They have Gay Beast, Pet Sex, and Barn Love are their front 3 websites that are connected to them. I think the last time I done a Who Is, I think they're still even on the same server.
Can you get us can you list those names again for me one at a time so I can get them down for my notes for later review?
So the first site is gaybeast.com, all one word. Or, no spaces or anything. The second one is petsex.com. And the third one is barnlove.com. Now, Alex has made and posted quite a few videos on these sites. And, he obviously is very much unashamed by it. He ended up getting his YouTube channel terminated because he was also promoting pedophilia on his YouTube channel.
Yep, that lines up with an August 9, 2017 video about him being all for bestiality, pedophilia, incest, and necrophilia.
Right.
He and Kero are kind of in the same boat right there.
Yeah.
Did Kero get, I thought, not that I give a shit, I'm trying to save his name, but is he accused of pedophilia? Just out of curiosity?
When I looked at the logs, I remembered seeing him saying something about he would hump a 4-month-old, but
there were some semi-pedophilic remarks. It was mostly about young animals, but
it was very much about underage or immature animals. So and that's sort of another point, I guess, that I should kind of point out about the zoo ethic, if you will, is that none of us would ever engage with an immature animal. So these fuckers that are doing shit like, oh yeah, I was with a newborn puppy. Like,
yeah,
that's wrong on so many more levels.
So effectively what you're saying is that within the ethics of zoophilia, people will try to avoid having interactions with animals that aren't biologically, sexually mature?
Absolutely.
Got it.
So the other sort of piece of news, I guess, and I'm surprised he hasn't shown up on any of Anthony's videos on the subject, is Alusky actually did recreate his channel. He has nothing on it, but he goes around spewing the same kind of bullshit about, you're a bigot if you don't accept zoosexuals and,
That sounds like Douglas. That sounds like Douglas Spink.
He does that. And Doug wasn't quite as bad as what the media maybe tried to portray him as.
Yeah, he wasn't as bad, but he still was running a massive animal sex tourist attraction.
He was running a fucking animal brothel and he was trafficking drugs. Now, there was some shit in some news articles that were, after sensationalism, for example, that said he had greased up mice in Vaseline and shit like that. That I know a few people who have talked to Doug, and that was absolutely not true. That was one of the allegations brought against Doug, is that he had mice and shit greased up for people to shove in places and shit. That was one of the big allegations.
So basically it's kind of like the whole deal when people were talking about Kero being in videos fucking dead deer. It's one of those things which kind of happened because people started to throw all the allegations together and didn't know what to believe and not believe.
Because people kind of wanted it to happen, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what the media was going for, because if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, another couple of bit of interesting bits of info from my community. I knew some of Mr. Hand's friends and had actually seen some conversations between them and Ken a few days before he died. He was talking about I got a big surprise or something fun planned for the weekend or something, if I remember right. And the interesting thing about Hands is that he actually got into horses because he basically was kind of a masochist, and he had a motorcycle accident that left him slightly numb from the waist down. So sort of done that got into that whole thing as like a technique to feel something again. Of course, the problem is the night that the fatal night that he had the encounter with, he was drunk. And I think under the influence of something else, but I can't remember what that something else was, but he was intoxicated.
So that would explain the failure of whatever organ failed within him after, the obvious force of a horse penis inside of you.
It was his large intestine that was torn, and he didn't go to the hospital because I remember some of the conversations popped up. He didn't go to the hospital because he feared the prejudice, and at the time in Washington State, bestiality wasn't against the state law. Needless to say, after Ken died, they passed a law within a week.
Yeah. So basically, his idea was that he would become persona non grata. He'd lose his job. He'd lose his livelihood if he was to go to the hospital. Because obviously, when you go in, you're gonna become probably some kind of news story if it was big enough.
And he was an engineer at Boeing. So that's the easiest way to lose your fucking job, man. Boeing has some pretty high standards, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he was. I think he may have been like a mechanical engineer at Boeing, if I remember correctly. But yeah, he was an engineer, and his sort of fear of prejudice is what led him down that path. Of course, we know that Kero is a lot more guilty in that the regards to what he's done, but it's like I said in one of the comments on one of your videos, is that if Kero had admitted and taken the bestiality charge that would have been offered against him, that motherfucker would have got off so much easier than he's going to get off now. He has done fucked himself 6 ways from Sunday, and I can't wait till he gets buried alive.
That's what I've been.
I'm sure he enjoyed it, though.
That's what I've been saying from the start. If he just said, hey, I fucked up, please forgive, he probably would have been able to get off. Like, he still would have been, obviously, why the fuck would you do that? But people would probably get over it eventually if he was to, keep his fucking nose clean.
And that's the thing.
Freaking a lot of him.
He's shoving his tail down his own fucking throat, and eventually it's gonna get to his legs and his body, and he's just gonna...
he's gonna choke!
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right?
They'll still enjoy it the whole way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, in Pennsylvania, bestiality is like a $200 fine and 80 hours of community service. If you're convicted, it's basically a low-tier misdemeanor, and I believe it would go off your record in a couple of years. Now, he's facing felony charges, like evidence destruction. I think, if I remember my sort of education from law enforcement, he's probably looking at like 5 to 10 years now just for destroying evidence. And that's in federal prison. So, he fucked up real big.
Proof he's destroying evidence, I know...
I remember Farlado mentioning it, but I don't remember much more.
Yeah, I just know that's part of Zysis having leaked information. They think that a lot of people who had their information leaked are going around purging literally as much as they can before law enforcement tries to catch up with the fact that almost all the information that had previously not been known at all is being, thrown around like hotcakes.
Well, and that's like
more connected than anything that has to do with the Illuminati.
Well, see, the thing is, Illuminati is a bunch of arbitrary bullshit. This is real life.
This is real shit, yeah. And that's the thing. And I'm calling him out right now. Pseudonym is a fucking idiot. Just like most of the quote-unquote champions for our community, like that dumb bitch Whitney Wisconsin.
Who is Whitney Wisconsin?
How many of you have heard of her?
See, I have been central to all of this shit ever since like the very first leaks came like into my head. I have never heard the fucking name Whitney Wisconsin. Never shown up on the radar.
So she was more on the beast/zoo side versus the furry side. But her and Aluzgi, and there's one other person I'll mention here in a moment.
Hang on a second. Give me a sec to get my notes set up here. So, Whitney, Wisconsin. Ooh, I found the ED page, man.
Yeah, so Whitney's real name is Amy Lynn Liu.
Hey, hang on now. I'm not even there yet. I need to still like unblock my screen after looking up that ED page and
Holy shit, that diff. This is
okay. Anyway. What's the real name?
The real name is Amy Lynn, Lynnlew.
Oh, that's an interesting name. So, what do we got?
Okay. Oh, dear. Okay, yeah, I'm not looking at Nope.
I knew that was gonna happen. I knew that was gonna happen.
I'm making mac and fucking cheese and no one's gonna stop me.
Okay.
Wait,
So
what? I'm talking about sales right now. I have no idea what's going on.
just let me know whenever you guys are ready for me to continue.
All right, I am ready to take
You're ready?
a ton of notes on this.
So Amy, again, not much connection to the furry fandom, but she's more in or tried to be in our community. She had a couple of videos that actually put her on the map. She had a YouTube channel. She had a video called 10 Reasons Why Women Should Have Sex with Dogs.
What?
And she made...
Wait, is that crazy?
Oh, I remember this person.
Yes, that is the
So-
very...
So basically,
like,
this is some
dogs
general
confused
info. What do
here?
you have about her and Xysis and the Zoo Sadist Leaks?
Okay, so in depth, and this is kind of in reference to when I told you that our champions were idiots.
Yeah.
This ties in. So what this dumb bitch did, she had bought, and I don't know any responsible breeder that would have done this. She managed to acquire a 3-day-old puppy.
No.
And her logic was that if she fed it meat as fast as possible, that it would mature faster or evolve faster, were the words on her fucking Facebook.
No.
Now, this dumb bitch would cut up pieces of hot dogs and try to cram them down the throat of a 3-day-old puppy. She also, in her post, mentioned, I can't figure out why it's not opening its eyes. They feel like they're glued shut. So she ended up being arrested, I believe, on animal torture and cruelty charges. And yeah, she basically killed a 3-day-old puppy because she was a fucking moron. And that ties in kind of to our champions being idiots because she, like Aluzgi and like Zoodonym's trying to do, we're trying to be a hero for the beast and zoo community, and it's not going to work. There's...
Yeah, of course, you know? It's like Xanadu wanting to be the
Xanadu
heroes
engaging
of
in
the
internet
Zoo
blood
Sadist thing.
sports and trying to be the, you know, the big crackdown on the zoo sadist things and trying to be, you know, heroes in the fucking furry fandom. I remember before you had mentioned, and the sense of irony really hit me, because after you mentioned that, you know, Zoodonym was basically trying to be some kind of hero, I seen one of the Xana live streams, I think it's still up on the Xanadu Media channel.
What date?
Where...
Do you know the date for that one? I'm gonna probably look into that further.
Date. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. It might take me a minute.
Here's something about the Whitney drama alert thing, but still a thing.
Okay.
I remember watching this a few years back.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Yeah, I'll look into that in a bit. Oh, fuck.
Alright. I'm still looking for the thing on Xanadu.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't need to give me the specific date. I'll probably...
I can't take these people seriously since they named themselves after a fucking horrible musical.
Hang on. You know the poem by that one dude who also wrote the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, right?
No.
Basically, he had a dream, and when he woke up, he was like, I need to write a poem, and he wrote as much as he could, and then he got interrupted by a vacuum salesman and forgot, so the poem's unfinished.
What the fuck?
Here, let me
Wait,
look
go.
that up real quick.
Okay, so Orlando, the date for that stream, I believe, was Drama Call, the Kero update. It was 2 months ago, according to YouTube. Let me click on the video and I'll get you the exact date.
Okay. Drama Call. Actually, just seeing Drama Call is enough.
Yeah, it's in the YouTube, right? You can throw the link in the chat. It's on YouTube.
Looks like September 30th. So the statement that I found to be a bit ironic with Xanadu in that regard was you now have Zoodonym and a lot of these other zoophiles that are trying to play big key and help Xanadu and all this. And Lynn Gilbert himself in the call said, if we find out that you're a zoophile or anyone who even openly admits to it, you will be doxxed. You will have your information leaked. Everything will be taken from you. That kind of bullshit. You know, I can't wait to bring these assholes down and shit like that.
So he said if you found out you are a zoophile, so...
That he was going to dox you and people were going to dox you and turn you over to the authorities and ruin your life and that kind of shit.
And yet, Xysis was perfectly fine with including the zoophiles within the whole, you know, zoo sadism investigation.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. Especially if any of us had any big info, we would have been more than happy to help take those people down because the shit they do is completely unacceptable in any way, shape, and form. But don't include us or include us on a more anonymous level. Don't go, spouting out that you're the one that did it. That's gonna fuck your life up too.
Pseudonym only gave us 500 to 600 megabytes, and I did get the number wrong in the pod. It was closer to 30 to 50 gigabytes, but that is still...
I figured as much. That's a lot of fucking evidence, though.
That's
and
still
most of
a lot more than what Pseudonym gave. And
sure.
They're probably approaching 300 gigabytes of evidence overall on all the people who we are.
Well, yeah, because you figure, video files typically are large in size, especially if they're uncompressed.
They're getting even better, though.
Yeah, I holy shit. That's so much more, because the archive I downloaded from the original Kiwi leak was like 700 meg.
Ooh, that's a little bigger than the one that I got.
Yeah, the one I got from, it was actually from the Zoo Sadism thread. It was like 700 meg. I can't remember exactly who posted, but there was actually some pretty gruesome videos in that log as well. Like in the Kiwi.
I've seen it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I've had more than enough time to go through it. I can't imagine what others have found. There are people within the current investigating just before things get to the police to better organize it for them. Some of those people are in some pretty crazy therapy now because of how much they've had to see.
Of the shit. Even just hearing about it was basically making me white knuckle the arms of my chair in anger. I mean, there's only so much a person can take. And, what's odd is that maybe they just don't know enough about it or don't care, but the small zoo forum I'm in now, they actually haven't mentioned a whole lot about it. I brought it up and basically started a big thread saying, the things that we need to start trying to do as far as trying to establish some ethics and establish some kind of boundary for acceptable versus unacceptable content. And, the forum that I'm in, for example, the administrator doesn't allow porn to be posted. So
of course,
that's a step in the right direction, but there's a lot more things that have to be appeased and a lot more things that have to be appealed to in order to, I don't want to say get us accepted, but get it to where people maybe don't want to kill us on sight.
Yeah, basically. Obviously, I understand weird in that I can actually kind of understand where zoophiles come from.
Sure.
I almost ended up going down that path myself, but I've got a very, very, very reasonably colorful history in studying ethics as a whole.
Them?
Oh, God, animal, don't, no. God damn it.
A dog would probably be more loyal to me than the last bitch I was with, so...
Hey,
do not insult female dogs like that.
Hey, don't worry, man. I watched your guys' last pod. That's what gave me the idea to finally come forward and at least try to talk to you guys and maybe show you that not all of us are completely fucking insane.
Yeah, of course. I might have my own personal objections. I do feel that there's a lot that we need to study within animal psychology before we can really conclude one way or the other. But that's not to say that we should immediately drown out people who might still have a thing or two to say. I have a wealth of information now to start to dig into my own ideas and really create my own piece on the people that you've brought up.
And that's the next thing, it's hard for us to approach researchers or anything because of the rash of criminalization that's happened after the Mr. Hands, after the Florida goat strangler incident.
Even if
Florida goat strangler? What?
Wait, what? Hang on.
You guys have never heard of that.
Is he related to the East Area rapist?
Oh, God damn it.
Florida goat strangler.
Area rapist.
So in the zoo community, there was this guy that earned
Stranger Bob. Stranger Bob.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't know
that doesn't look like. That's early 1980s. So that's just that's just something that came up.
This was obviously, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off here, but hashtag Florida man kind of applies here.
Ooh,
Florida man. Florida's insane.
Is he the greatest of all time of stranglers?
Possibly. Okay. I never, but it did make the news for a little while, but this guy was basically snuck onto this person's property. He fence hopped had sex with this guy's doe goat and in the process strangled it to death.
Ooh,
What the?
that is beautiful.
I mean,
So-
not really, but
A lot of if you're
I think he's being
morbid, it's,
ironic when he's saying that. Jesus.
yeah, it's like it's beautiful in a morbid sort of way.
I say it
if you will.
completely sarcastically.
But
I could see
Yeah,
why people might mentally shut down on being able to pick up motivation in this call.
it's like, you know, this guy in the community earned the name the Florida Goat Strangler, and it's people like that we try to distance ourselves from.
Of course.
But it's also stories like that, especially when they're sensationalized in the media, when you've got some dumbass teen girl that has sex.
I'm just
Sorry.
imagining there's this giant like zoo get together. There's a big cake in the middle. Oh no, Larry's here. Larry, we told you.
Yeah, we
Holding
didn't
a
tell you we
goat
were going to be here.
You can either strangle or have sex with it. You can't have both.
Holding a goat plush.
With-
Someone needs
Oh
to draw
my-
that.
Oh my god. Okay, so that's the thing. There used to be real life zoo meetups, like in the I don't want to call them conventions, but
Yeah, I mean, there were some times in Anthrocon which someone would bring some zoo content which that had previously never
Yeah.
been seen, and they would
you
show
were
it
telling
off.
me about that, like about with the whole thing with Bad Dragon. That was insane.
That's
Wait, what?
a
With Bad
story I
Dragon?
picked.
What?
Admittedly, I picked it up off 8chan. Supposedly, the way that
Yeah.
obviously, like the founding of Bad Dragon, that's kind of just common information if you know the right people. There was a forum
Sure.
called Bad Dragons. They were kind of a quote-unquote general forum, but it was really bestiality oriented. The two founders of Bad Dragon met on the Bad Dragons forum and named their company in a bit of homage to Bad Dragons. The way that they split up was during an Anthrocon like zoo presentation. There was a video of a dolphin which had previously never before been seen. One of the two friends tried to pull the video off the laptop while nobody was looking, and it caused a schism, and they split.
Ouch. Yeah, oof indeed.
Dolphins are intense, man.
But
Yeah.
the thing though that should be said is like the issue I feel with like the whole criminalization is that it makes research really difficult. Like obviously, I feel like the reason
kind of
there's a role
like,
for
operate on the
criminalization.
same- Yeah,
Like-
I
like
think
for
we
me, it's
operate
like-
on the same wavelength with that one because
I mean, there's
if it
obviously
was-
a role for criminalization where, you know,
sure.
we don't know, so it's probably best you don't do that until we have the answer. But the issue is that the way that it's criminalized
It's a catch
means that we
22.
can't even look for an answer to the questions,
Sure.
because why would the hell would you want to try to justify fucking a dog, you sick motherfucker? Like, you know,
Yeah.
I feel
And
it's
that's-
just we don't know enough about animal psychology to
Right.
really say
And-
one way or another whether animals are even psychologically capable of consent or things like that.
And the thing
only
is,
known case of an animal
Sorry, go
being sentient is a bird, and that was only after many, many years. I don't remember exactly how many, when it looked itself in the mirror and said, "My feathers are gray."
so the thing is, you have to
Yeah.
realize the difference between sentience and sapience in that term. If something is sentient, that means that it has a conscience.
I said
I'm
sentient.
sorry, conscience or consciousness. Jesus Christ, I can't talk. If something has a consciousness, if it has the ability to be self-aware, then that's a sentient creature. If something
Yes,
is
that's
sapient,
sentient.
if something is a sapient creature, that's what we are.
So
We're
it's-
the ones that ask existential questions. We're the ones that ponder our past, present, and future, things like that. Now, the thing to realize is there's actually been a fairly new study, I think it was back in 2016, that actually proved that dogs are self-aware, but by using scent instead of sight.
Yeah, so essentially what we're saying here then is that we can conclude that yes, animals are sentient per se, but perhaps we could
Right.
then say that consent is not a concept of sentience per se, but rather one of sapience, because a sentient being is not necessarily sapient in as much as that it recognizes that it's a volitional creature, that there is some basis for its decisions necessarily. So then with a
Well-
sapient creature, we can really create the concepts of consent in the first place and make our own rational decisions from them.
And that's the thing, too. You have to realize that in order to divine consent, you have to have a sense of imagining that goes along with it. You know, obviously, your sense of imagining, your representation of reality in your own head, the map of reality that you or I lay out, is going to be very different than that of an animal's map of reality. It's going to all have different shapes, different perceptions. It's hard to define consent.
I had no idea that animals thought differently than humans.
Yeah.
No idea in any way, shape, or form.